Okay, welcome to part 3 of our series of tutorials. I'm afraid we're still in idiot guides country, but there's no escaping that for a little while, I'm afraid. We're all idiots when we start. No, I was, no point not admitting that. And it's important that we get the really sort of simple stuff really sort of in our heads right from the word go. This sort of stuff is it's like the basic foundations to your house. If you don't get these things right, the whole thing just comes tumbling down around you. And I've seen so many people be bought expensive cameras for Christmas or birthdays. They've read all the photography magazines, they've seen all the YouTube videos, and what they've heard is you need to be in manual if you want to be called a proper photographer, and you need this, you need that. And if you don't get the basics into your head first and you don't really understand those, it doesn't matter what camera you get. It's like we said yesterday, buying a 10 grand camera and a 5 grand lens doesn't make you a great photographer. It won't get you great photographs. It's learning up here that does that. You know, you can get pretty good photos if you just leave everything on automatic, leave it up to the boffins that develop these things and the electronic brains inside them. That's fine. If you want to take that next step, if you want to take the step and you be in control rather than the camera being in control of you, you need to understand these basics. So I'm afraid we do have to go through these. So here we are. Your camera. My first DSLR, my old D50, hasn't worked for years, but you know, principles are the same. How do these work? How do you create a photo with one of these? Well, perfectly simple in principle. The light comes in this end, it hits a sensor at the back and creates a photo. Doesn't matter whether you use a phone, a little bridge camera, compact camera, throwaway camera, or the most expensive DSLR on the market, the principles are the same. The light comes in that end, hits the sensor at the back and creates a photo. Got it? Job done. But of course it's not that simple. If you get too much light in, the photo will be overexposed. It'll be too bright. If you don't get enough light in, the photo will be underexposed. It'll be too dark. And we've all done that. We've all seen those. So you have to get the right amount of light in. Okay, so as we said yesterday, you can leave it on auto and let the camera work it all out for you. The camera is programmed to work out or to second guess what it thinks you're doing. So if it thinks you're outside with a wide angle lens taking landscape photos, it will set everything up a certain way for those type of photos. If it senses, because of the lens you've got on, that you're photographing something macro, flower, something like that, again, it will work out the best settings for that. Something fell down outside, not in my garden. And again, it knows if you're out at night because there's basically a light meter in your camera. Your camera's basically a light meter, works out how much light there is. If it works out you're out at night, it will adjust everything to allow enough light in to be able to take photos at night, even if it's really, really dark. So you can do that. You can leave it on auto. The camera can sort it out for you. But as I say, if you want to be in control of the camera rather than the camera in control of you, you need to understand how you control that light, how you stop too much light getting in, how you stop too little light getting in. Okay, now there are 3 main ways that a camera does that, and you probably know them, but it bears repeating. Okay, first one is the shutter. Now that opens and closes to let the light in. Just think about a window in an old house with shutters on it. If the shutters are closed, no light's getting in. If you open the shutters, light comes in. If you leave the shutters open for a long time, loads of light comes in. If you just go really, really quick, just a flash of light will come in. The camera's exactly the same. So that's the first thing that you use to control the light, the shutter. Okay. The second is the aperture. Basically, the aperture is like an iris which opens and closes to create a bigger or a smaller hole. Obviously, the bigger the hole, the bigger the aperture, the more light gets in. The smaller the hole, the smaller the aperture, the less light gets in. So again, On auto, the camera will work that out for you. If the camera senses it's a bright sunny day, it will have a small aperture, just as a default setting. Same as it will have a faster shutter speed as a default setting on a bright sunny day. If you're out at night, the camera works out you're out and it's very, very dark. It will open the aperture right up and do a slower shutter speed. The camera will do that for you, okay? But you have to understand those principles for when you take over and you start adjusting them yourself and you're getting beyond the auto settings. The third way of controlling the light is adjusting the sensitivity of the sensor at the back. It's a little bit like in the days of film, when you could go out and you could buy film that was specially made for night photography, for low light photography, because it was just more sensitive. The chemicals on the film were more sensitive. It's all electronic now, and rather than buying a film that is stuck at either a night level sensitivity or a day level sensitivity, and you can only use it for that, the sensor will adjust for each individual shot. You can change it all the time. And again, in the auto settings, the camera will do that for you. If you were taking note of the settings, you can see them in your viewfinder on the back of your camera, which I actually would say is a good tip when you first start out. Just look at those and just see how they change with the light. If you left it for the camera to sort out, you went out at night, it would automatically put the ISO, the sensitivity of your sensor, up to at least 800, probably higher. And when you're out in broad daylight, it'll be 100 or 200, and it will just do that as a default thing because it's just adjusts the amount of light available. So those are the three ways you control, three main ways. There are lots of other little ways that we'll come on to in later sessions, a little bit more technical, a little bit more complicated maybe, that just tweak those three variables actually. But they're very, very useful and very quick when you understand. We'll come on to them later, so forget I said any of that. Okay, so just to recap, light comes in the front, it's the sensor at the back. If too much light gets in, overexposes and ruins your photo. Not enough light gets in, it underexposes and ruins your photo. So you control that by either adjusting the shutter speed, fast to slow, which let in a different amount of light. You adjust the aperture, which is the iris, the hole, to let more or less light in, and you can adjust the sensitivity of the sensor at the back. But it's the aperture and the shutter speed, the two main ones that you will use as a photographer to control the light. Okay, now there's just one extra thing to talk about regarding aperture that just needs mentioning, because some people do get confused by it and get a bit hung up around this. We talk about the aperture in terms of f numbers, and you'd think intuitively that if you heard somebody talking about f16, that will be a large aperture compared to say f4, because it's a bigger number. 16 is bigger than 4, 16's got to refer to a bigger hole, right? Wrong. It's completely the opposite way around, of course. Now, experienced photographers will know this, and it'll be sort of ingrained in our brains. But I've seen so many people get this the wrong way round and get really, really confused when they first start. So I will mention it. Try not to get too hung up about it, but it is important that you understand it, because if you do sort of just think of it in terms of big number equals big hole, little number, little hole, you're going to be completely the wrong way around. And honestly, I've seen so many people get this right round their head, wrong way around on photo walks and things. People, the thing that people have struggled with more than anything else when I do tutorial sessions with them, the early stuff, is apertures and f numbers. It's a shame it can't be another way round, but that's how it is. It's to do with the focal length of the lenses, and you know, it's a technical thing. But a large aperture could be f1.2, something like that. Not many lenses even go that wide, but that's, you know, the lowest number is the biggest hole, the biggest aperture. So when you're out at night, you'll be shooting in like f2, f3s and 4s, things like that, a large aperture to let more light in, and it is just worth thinking about that. Mostly would have already understood it, but say for beginners, that can be a real sort of stumbling block. So I'll mention it, try not to get too hung up about it. Okay, best of luck. We'll move on to something a little bit more technical maybe next time.